Hi, everybody. Welcome to Leader Tips Live. I'm super excited that you're here with me today. Today, I have a very special edition of Leader Tips Live. As you know, I always say this when we're doing Leader Tips. I'm going to talk about life and leadership, and I want you to put your stuff in the comment section. It's going to be super exciting tonight. But I have a very special guest, and this is a very special edition of Leader Tips Live. Tonight, we're going to talk about education, and I'll be having a good friend of mine on tonight. So, give me one moment. I'm going to dial him in, and then we're going to talk with my guy, Michael Winters. So, all right, I'm going to wait for Michael to dial in, and then we're going to get started, y'all, and talk about leadership and talk about also education more specifically. So I'm looking forward to hearing from him. Mike, did you see the request sent to you? All right. Wait for Mike to dial in real quick. What's up, bro?
Hey, what's good, man? How you doing, bro?
Good. Good.
Cool, cool.
Doing this with me, Mike. Like I said, I greatly appreciate you, bro, for giving me your time to talk about this subject of education and how it's affecting everybody right now. And as you well know, it's a trip out here.
Man, it's wild out here right now, bro.
Yeah, and so we're gonna jump right in and get started. First of all, just kind of introduce yourself to everybody and share who you are and what you do and kind of your background as an educator.
Cool, for sure, man. First of all, I just want to say, man, thank you, Lee, for having me on your podcast, man. Salute to you for your channel, for your podcast, great content.
Okay.
Um, no problem, man. But for those who don't know, I'm Michael Winters, originally from Vicksburg, Mississippi. Uh, I am an educator. I'm in Memphis, Tennessee right now. And I also have a podcast show titled Wins and Lessons. If you can't see the backdrop in the back behind me. But I've been an educator for about going on 5 years now. It's 4.5 years right now. I've been teaching in Mississippi and also Tennessee for the past 2.5 years, man. I really love what I do. I love the opportunity that I have to impact the lives of kids, impact the lives of the future generations. Also building relationships, man, with the parents and also other community members. So, I'm blessed to be able to have that kind of access to the people. Also serving, I have a mentoring program called Gentlemen of Leadership and Development, where I offer character development as well as curriculum development.
Oh, that's amazing. That's amazing, Mike. And like I said, thank you for coming on. But I kind of want to diverge a little bit from what we're going to talk about tonight, considering everything that's going on in our country, our culture right now. I want to ask you, before we really get in tonight, how are you doing? How's your mental health? It's been kind of a heavy week in a weird way. Um,
Yes.
we want to talk about what we're going to talk about, but I think a part of having conversations about anything is being aware of the impact that these situations has on people. So,
Right.
how's your health? How are you doing emotionally right now? And how do you feel about everything that's been going on with, in light of what happened with Jacob Blake this week and all the other stuff?
Man, that's a great question, man. I appreciate you for being open to asking that. I'll just say, personally, just taking it a day at a time. It's a lot of unfortunate things going on right now across the world, not just me personally, but just, everybody out here is dealing with something. So
Yeah.
just taking it one day at a time, man, and being grateful for each day as it comes, making the best of each day, each moment. But in terms of, in light of what happened to the young man here a few days ago, like, it just really, it makes me think, like, at what point will people wake up and realize what's going on? At what point will change happen? Like, what will it take for something to change? Like, for that young man to be shot in the back like that 7 times, an unarmed person
Right.
7 times to be shot.
And it's
Like,
like kids. So that's
it's it's a lot that we could talk about just based off of that situation alone. Like, we can do a whole episode just basically on that.
Yeah.
But I think, man, as far as mental health as our people as a whole, that's really a setback because we're not really over what happened to George Floyd,
Yeah.
and Breonna Taylor. Like, I recently organized a protest here in Memphis, man, a couple of months ago, and we protested for those lives that were lost. But it seems like it's not a it's not a really big difference being
Yeah.
made. People are protesting. The NBA is protesting.
Right.
Uh, all these athletes and entertainers, man, are protesting on the front lines, but yet, we still yet to get any kind of justice. So
Yeah. Yeah.
it's very unfortunate. But like I said, man, just take it one day at a time and pray and work to do the
Yeah.
best that we can to make a difference where we are locally. And then if we can do that consistently, man, I think that over time we can make something shake, man, on a big level.
Oh, I totally agree, Mike. And I'm with you in that conversation. There's so much going on, and I think a lot of people have to realize that at this present moment, we cannot take these situations lightly, and there has to be a push on all fronts, whether it's political, whether it's social, whatever front. We need to be organizing and pushing people to get involved. I
Right.
just thought I'd start with that because it's been on my mind, and I've been having conversations with a few people the last few days, and so let's talk about that first, and then we can get to talking about our kids. So, as you said earlier, you're an educator, and so I remember you telling me what exactly do you do at your school?
So I've been teaching English language arts, basically reading, for the last 2 years,
Okay.
and it's been on the elementary level, so like fifth grade. I also work with uh, like fourth, third grade students, as well as on up to middle school, high school with the mentoring.
Oh
But
wow.
primarily, yeah, just teaching reading, man. It's been a joy. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, and I mean, as you well know, if they get the fundamentals of reading, it helps build. It's a building block to so much other stuff for them. Uh,
Right.
but so as we get into the school year, as you know, I don't know when you guys started, but here in the last week here in Tulsa, schools have started within last week, and I've been hearing some interesting things from parents about this first week. They like, whoo, these
Man.
these parents and some of these teachers, man, they are like, so what are you seeing, at least on your side as an educator, in some ways that they can be successful this school year, or just even this first half of the semester?
Right. I think the main thing is to be patient, because everything is new for everybody.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
all of this is new for the educational system, is new for the parents, new for the students, most definitely.
yeah.
So we just need to be patient as we try to navigate through the technical side of things, because a
Right.
lot of teachers, some of the more seasoned teachers aren't used to navigating through a lot of these online platforms. And then you
That's
got a lot of parents, man, who work and have things to do during the day to try to take care and provide for their families, and they're not, on hand to be there with their kids and monitor their kids. So it's just a lot of moving pieces that people just need to really be patient and just kind of show grace to one another. I made a post earlier on my story, man, about the grace aspect. Like, if you want to receive that, you got to be willing to give that.
right, right,
So,
right.
educationally, man, we definitely need patience. All the patience and grace is possible.
Yeah, yeah, and as you well know, everybody's kind of doing it different. You know,
Hmm.
um, just more specific, are you all doing strictly online, or are y'all doing in person? How is your school district or school doing or approaching this?
So here in Memphis, like Shelby County Schools is doing 100% virtual online,
Oh wow,
right? But some of the charter school districts are doing like a hybrid model. So they have some days where they're in person, and they have other days where they're online. So it's kind of a blend. It's kind of a blend, depending on where you are.
yeah, I'm seeing a lot of that here, and I've had a lot of parents say to me that they, even when they were given options, they weren't sure what was the best option for their kid because they're not
Right.
sure about all the logistical stuff that might be involved in that.
Right.
And as you well know, you got to figure out how to navigate that and actually give the information to the parents so that
Right.
it can be more productive and successful. So, as far as schools and stuff like that is concerned, are you seeing schools even when it comes down to them meeting in person? What are some of the measures that you're seeing schools do as far as like trying to ensure that they don't spread the virus or even expose kids to what possibly could be a problematic moment?
Right, it's a good question. So, some of the schools that are offering an in-person option, like I said, people are learning. People are still learning,
Yeah.
um, and really just trying to figure out what's going on. So they really just take precautions based on what other districts who are doing in-person learning are doing. Just trying to make sure that our scholars are safe to the furthest extent from the time that they get dropped off to the school upon the time that they even get to a classroom, and make sure that social distancing is also established.
Right.
So it's kind of like an ongoing thing, man. To be honest, they really don't have like a lot of places don't have like a concrete
Right.
thing in place. They just kind of take precautions as they go and just try to follow the CDC guidelines. Because when we talk about like actually in the classroom learning, a lot of learning is collaborative. So, within that collaborative
Right.
learning, you
Right.
within close confined spaces. If you're doing small groups and one-on-one learning, all of that is going to look different now. So that, it's an ongoing process, man.
Oh, I can only imagine, especially at the elementary level. I mean, that's where most kids are doing a lot of collaborative work
Right,
anyway. Well, no, you
right,
know, they start doing more independent things by middle school or high school. But this is going to be interesting to see what happens with elementary school kids and how they engage or are able to deal with that process. So,
right.
um, are 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 you seeing that even with your school, are you guys trying to um, have a system of, hey, at this certain time of day, we're going to clean and then we're going to take the kids somewhere to do, or is it throughout the day, or is it like after school, is it before? Like, how are they handling those type of operations things?
So what I'm seeing is that like with the in person option, they definitely have a crew to come and sanitize the classrooms and everything before the day gets started, and just kind of throughout the day, and they monitor throughout those activities to make sure that the space is clean, and things like that. So I really believe that those, some of the other schools who are also doing those things, just kind of monitor the cleanliness of the area throughout the day, to monitor it. But like I said, it's really ongoing. It's really ongoing.
Yeah, and we might have to have a follow up conversation in like 2 or 3 months
Right, right,
to see how the impact of, you know, this is the first week or two for most people. So
right.
you are still trying to figure out if it's even going to work. And then,
Exactly.
and knowing that in a few months they'll be able to collect at least enough data to be like, hey, we might need to do this, or we might need to do that. And not to mention the fact, as you well know, how school funding is. So I'm not even going. my, I'm gonna save you the aggravation. We may not
Thank
even talk about that one.
you. Right.
So that's a whole different thing. But I do want to make sure that people know this. As we have this conversation here on Leadership Live, if you have questions, please put those questions in the comment section. Michael or I will answer any questions you might have, whether you have kids or not, whether you have friends or not who um, are involved in education or are trying to send their kids, or you have cousins or family members who may be going back to school right now and are having a lot of different things come to mind. Put those comments or questions in the comment section. We'll be glad to answer them and hear from you. So let's keep moving. So as far as course load, I know that it depends on what grade the kids are in and all the things. How do you feel like teachers, or where do you hear from other educators on how they're navigating that? Because I think, at least from my perspective, it seems interesting when I remember in third grade when that was the first time I ever started changing classes.
Hmm.
English, and then I'll go to math, my math class or reading class. What do you hear from other educators on how they're doing that?
Man, so to be honest, in general, I'm hearing that it's very overwhelming because
Wow.
you have this online platform, and if you have different classes and things like that, you have to share links. So when when you're sharing those different links for the different classes and for the kids to come in, uh, sometimes I've heard some teachers say that they get extra visitors, meaning that they get kids to come into their classes that shouldn't really be in there, so they got to figure out a way how to get them to the right place, or get them the right links or whatever, so they can get their learning time. But just that transitional time in with the links, making sure that your technology is functioning properly, making sure that the kids' technology is functioning properly. Like typically in the classroom, you have anywhere between like 25,
Right.
28
Right.
kids. So on a virtual platform, if you have that, for sure somebody's gonna have some technical issues. So
Yep.
just carving out the time, man, to address those issues for each student, for each parent. Parents might have questions about something. You
Yeah.
got to take time out to address that. You might even have, dealing with kids just doing silly stuff online, like just carving out the time to deal with all of those things and
Yeah.
still be effective with your instruction. So it's definitely an adjustment.
And I can only imagine now because they're not in the same space, so you almost can't be like, hey, you need to stop and trying to monitor the attentiveness. I have right now my sister, she's 16. Well, no,
Mhm.
she's 17. Oh my God, bro, man, I got a younger sister. She just started her senior year, man, and I'm like, bro, I'm about to get back in the gym, dog, because we like we can't be out here having it. You know what I mean?
Right,
But for her it's a little bit different because she's 17. She's been doing it, but I can only imagine how much stress it is on teachers when you're trying to keep the attention of 8-year-olds and
right,
7-year-olds, and they all are not in the same space, and that seems like a difficult thing. And I mean, but she's 17 and she's been saying to me like, this is this is a lot. Like
hmm
I'm trying to figure out how to navigate this and go through whatever I need to go through with my classes, and then that link thing is probably real because she's trying to figure, okay, do I go to this person? Do I do? Am I clicking on the right link? Like, are they going to send us all the coursework at once, and then we just have to follow along? Like, I can only imagine the amount of intentionality that you all have to have. Anyway, y'all have a tough job anyway.
man,
Teachers,
to say the least. To say the
teachers,
least.
tough job because y'all don't have, I mean, depending on the school district, you may or may not have school nurses and counselors and all those extra para, organizational leaders to help you all take care of all the things. And considering the fact that we have disparities with children's access to internet and different things like that, and that impact on education. So I can only imagine all the stuff you deal with. Uh, I'm just gonna golf clap. Dog, I don't know
Man,
if I can
thank
do
you,
it right
thank you, thank
now. I don't know if I can do it, especially at this moment. We got to commend you guys for everything you do,
you.
especially if it's not Teachers Appreciation Week. You need a month, but that's another conversation for another day. So, as far as what are you seeing as far as some of the other educators and you all partnering to do those things? Like, do they have a liaison that ensures that kids are getting to the right place, or is it really solely on you all as teachers? Are you saying?
So what I've been seeing is that they have like other professionals in the
Okay.
class meetings, and
Okay.
they kind of help monitor and navigate through
Yeah.
any extra technical issues or any extra behavior issues. So like how you had the classroom assistants or assistant teachers, things like that. They'll have like just other teachers on hand who aren't active in the class at that moment to be on certain calls to try to manage those extra things so that instruction can still go forward. From what I can see, that's been very helpful. Um, but I will say, again, like with the technical aspect of everything is a learning curve, man, for
Yeah.
everybody. Like not only do you have to get the platform up, but you got to figure out how to deliver your content effectively through
Yeah.
that platform. And
Yeah.
so you can't be one dimensional anymore in this field. Like you had to definitely be open to growth, open to adapting and learning new things.
Yeah, and that's so interesting you say that. I think, at least from my perspective, I'm always interested in innovation and how that affects any space. And now we're seeing that it's forcing public education to have to innovate and change the approach and actually make teachers even more dynamic, as you
Yep.
well know. There's a lot of teachers that are younger that are savvy, but I wonder how it's going for teachers that been in the game 20 years and they've been teaching a certain way and doing things a certain way. I mean that I listen. At least all the pressure is not on you all to maintain, that situation and how that goes. So, just kind of staying right there for a little bit. How have you seen, even in what you do in the classroom, how has that communication been between you and those professionals, and how's that coordination working out?
So from what I've seen, there's been a lot of extra meetings to kind of navigate through that. So typically over the summer, we might not have as many meetings. You just kind of have your 1 week of in service before
Right.
school starts. But with this technology shift, a lot of administrators have been intentional on, providing extra support, providing extra meetings, and just FaceTime with their staff to prepare for this moment. That has been overwhelming. I have heard voices of a lot of other teachers saying, we've been doing more work since we've been doing remote learning than we have been in traditional. And which is definitely understandable because you had to prepare for what's upcoming. And a lot of administrators know that a lot of my teachers are not going to grasp this online learning concept as quickly as others. So we need to carve out the extra time on
Yeah.
the front end. So I've been seeing a lot of intentional planning on that part. Um, hopefully, it'll be successful across the board. If not, then, we'll have a lot of extra, openings in the next few months.
Oh
So,
man, and we at this point we really don't need that.
right, right. Not at all.
With so many school districts that are underserved. I mean, that's a
Right.
whole other conversation for another day. We could have a whole conversation about teachers' pay. And I know you have a lot.
Man,
Mike,
listen.
I know you about to have a lot to say about that one, and I'm going to leave that one alone.
Right.
I ran on that one, but
I spent an hour on that.
I know, I understand, especially the dynamics of what you have to deal with, and so it's an interesting thing. So I see a question real quick. The question is, as a parent, what can we do to assist kids in getting excited about virtual learning? You want to take the question?
Yeah, absolutely. Just, I think that sometimes kids don't realize that most of what they do is virtual. Like
Yeah,
they, play the video games to get
yeah,
on live. Uh, they play people online. And so just kind of hype them up, like this is a new way of learning. This is a new way of learning. You're part of something new. Like this has never happened before.
yeah.
No other group of students in the history of education has had this opportunity or platform. So just let them know, encourage them. Hey, you're doing something new every day that you get up and log on to your classroom. You're part of history. You're part of a new learning experience. So,
Yeah.
make the best of it. Make it great, and just encourage those kids to be the extra set of eyes and ears for those teachers because like I said, some seasoned teachers might not know how to navigate through certain things,
Right,
and if your child is tech savvy or know certain aspects of technology, they can be an extra help.
right,
So just really motivate them and push them to be a part of something new.
right. That's a great response, and it just made me think, Mike, that this could be a moment where it really pushes education to a place where it can be more practical for
Right.
kids now
Hmm.
in a way that makes it more efficient. I think sometimes our fear of change can prevent us from actually engaging in a way that could set up something amazing happening. Because
Right.
definitely with this particular moment, it's like, well, we don't know how this is going to work. And what if it works? Is public education going to move to a place where it actually is attainable. You know, it's funny you say that because, and I thought it was a great question because it made me think about how I knew kids, man, who were 4 or 5 years old, knew how to work an iPad,
Mm-hmm.
have never read a book in their life, don't even know how to write their ABCs, but they know how to use technology so well, and that's such an interesting thing that I'm seeing with kids that they just have a grasp of it. It's so quick. It's so interesting to me. There's another question. It says, what can parents do to assist teachers to make the new normal less stressful? That's a great question.
It is. It's very essential. That's a great question. Thank you for that question. So I would definitely say just making sure that your scholars have everything they need that's prepared already before the day starts. So make sure that you keep up with any communications from that teacher because I'm sure that you know most forward thinking teachers are going to already send you out those links ahead of time. Make sure that the students have access to whatever they need to get their day started and have a productive day. And also, if they're able to be present during some of those sessions to kind of just help them navigate through like opening up extra tabs or following links to something, article, whatever they have to do, just making sure they're on hand or have something in place to help them to get their work done online. That'll definitely be helpful.
Uh, and I agree. You know, one thing that came to my mind as you were talking was um, that this parent-teacher relationship is about to be strengthened like never before.
Right.
The parents are going to need you guys as much as you need them all to be engaged. You know, I think one of the biggest problems that we've seen in public education in some senses, and it's not everywhere, but in some ways, in public education, students are not involved because their parents, students are not engaged because their parents are not engaged in the process.
Right.
And well, no, you send information to these parents all the time. Now they got to be involved because what else is going to happen? So, it's kind of staying in that vein. Like, how are you personally seeing the parent teacher relationship be reshaped? Because there's now, you know, y'all can't do it without each other. So,
Right.
how are you seeing that change, even in the first few weeks of school, be reshaped?
Oh, so what I've seen so far is that the relationship has kind of shifted from being uh, from two different parties with opposing motives. Like sometimes parents kind of you know looking at teachers as if they have done something wrong or not doing enough, and now they're seeing the shift and they want they want to be more involved. So it definitely increased parental involvement. It also has increased parental concern
Yeah,
because parents want to make sure that their kids are online. They want to make sure their kids got access to everything. Like you said, overall, in general, it just has strengthened their relationship
yeah,
in general, man. And so it's kind of moving towards a codependency. Like, you
yeah.
know, we have to work together in order to help these kids be successful. So it's no more, back and forth or, you know, uh,
Baby ain't, you know,
right. Anything like that. It's all about working together, man.
right.
It's all about working together.
Right, and you know, to look at this parent-teacher conference situation about to go up, like y'all about to get, the PTA is about to grow.
Yeah, man, for sure.
They have no other choice. They got to be there
Right.
so that these teachers can, you know what's going on. But them as parents can find out what's going on with their kids and
Right.
how that how they can navigate that and move forward. So something else that was on my mind as it relates to that relationship. How are you seeing and some of these things haven't happened yet, but how are you seeing it play out as far as now relaying information to parents? You know, a lot of times you all send things out to parents and stuff like that about stuff that's going on with their kids, or their
Mhm.
field trips or whatever. But how do you see it playing out now that they have to be very involved in the process as far as like, uh, projects and different things like that?
Man, I think that especially with the lower grades,
Yeah,
I think that they'll be a lot more informed now
yeah,
because when we had traditional school with the lower grades, it's easier for kids. Like we sent home flyers and stuff every week, sent home folders every week, and it's nothing for a kid to leave it in their cubby or their book bag. But since they had to be accountable for logging on each day for attendance purposes, parents are going to be more aware of what's going on because they're face to face with the teacher now every day on a daily basis. Now with the older grades like middle school, high school, they're more independent. They don't need their parents to be on with them to make sure they get started. Um, that's a different world. I'm not necessarily part of that world. I'm in the elementary level. But what I can say that is any active parent or concerned parent would definitely, have direct access to the teacher now. It's nothing for them to drop in the chat box. Send them a quick message or ask a quick question while they're on the screen. So they're definitely more informed.
All right, that's great. I just want to say this real quick. There are people that's coming on. If you have any questions for myself or Michael about education or leadership related questions, put it in the comment section. We'll be glad to answer them. We enjoy seeing all of you here as we talk about life and leadership, and specifically education, because it's a real thing that's happening right now inside all of our schools, stuff like that. So we're going to kind of stay right there. But as you are seeing with parents and different things like that, how do you think some of the teachers are thinking about engaging students more directly? Because I think now, because you're not in the same space,
Mhm.
how is that going to look? What's that going to look like? Because as a teacher, many times, if a kid is having some issues, you pull them to the side, and then you're like, hey, what's going on? You know,
Right.
how is that dynamic? How do you see that dynamic kind of playing out as the school year goes on?
Man, to be honest with you, it's going to be a challenge. Like I said at the beginning, everything is ongoing, everything is fresh. So I'm aware that some platforms have like the breakout rooms. You can even do like from what I've been aware of, kind of have like a one-on-one, kind of breakout room. If you need to isolate a student from, the general population and just kind of, chat with them and talk with them individually or a small group. So I can definitely see some teachers utilizing that feature.
Yeah.
Um, it's ongoing, man, to be honest, but that is definitely going to be one of the hurdles. How are you going to address that student that needs that one-on-one attention outside of what you normally do? So you have to definitely be creative, man, to work around it for sure.
Creativity is going to be the key, as you
Man,
would.
most definitely.
It's going to be a major key. I see a question. It says, as for parents who have kids who have special needs, what are some tips you can give to them about virtual learning and how to make that easier? That's a phenomenal question. And I think I would just give my thoughts, and you can share whatever you're thinking. I think honestly, um, when it comes down to technology and then making it accessible for all people, kids who have special needs, I think it's super intense. If having conversation with school districts about the intentionality of how they look at technology and how to integrate technology in a way that is accessible for all students, but also ensuring that kids are able to get what they need, no matter their particular needs or in that regard, is going to be super important. And it's probably, as you probably give me more insight on, there probably has been conversations about how do we do that when it comes down to kids who might be in special needs or special education classes. How do we address those issues so that they are not left behind in the process, and their special needs and all of those intentional things they need doesn't cause them to get left behind or pushed aside and not taken care of.
Right, right. Absolutely, man. And so the great thing about that, our scholars that we serve, man, that have those special needs, they have those accommodations and everything to be made readily available for them. And so oftentimes, they have their own set of instructors that they work closely with. And
Yeah,
so what I'm anticipating, I haven't really necessarily experienced this directly, but just my thinking, what I'm anticipating is that they will have their time
yeah,
with those professionals that's in place to give them those accommodations. And for that general education teachers, whenever they are joined back in with the general population, they'll have something in place for them as well. Like I mentioned earlier, the breakout rooms, like, they could probably assign them with the group or, assign them to just be with the teacher for a set amount of time to kind of, remediate them or just serve them individually.
Right.
And, but going back to those teachers who are in place for them, I think that's going to be very crucial, for this time, man, to make sure that those teachers are in place to serve those kids, give them the, their individual needs.
Yeah, and yeah, you're right. It's going to take them being super intentional about
Right.
these kids get everything that they need, whether they're in person or not. And it's a lot to consider even in that for parents who might have some apprehension in even hybrid systems. Because I think and I could be very well wrong, but I think more parents who have kids with special needs are being even more precautious in even considering sending their kids to school in person at all. I don't think some of them they're saying like, my baby can't go to school. Like, we stand at the house or we're going to have to figure out a tutoring situation. Uh,
Mm.
I think probably some schools are looking at how can we do some in-person learning visually for students and how, it's going to take all these kind of
Absolutely.
ways to really address those issues and really, really do great. But I think that was a great question. And
Yeah,
like,
that's a really good question.
yeah, and if you have any more questions, anybody, you can put them in the comment section. But I want to ask you something more specifically that's beyond education. I think it's phenomenal that you have a mentorship program. Where did that come from? Like, what motivated you to start a mentorship program that addressed trying to educate young people, even though that's your expertise? But what
Mm.
led you to say, hey, I need to push beyond just them being in the classroom? How can I mentor young men and
Man,
women?
I'm glad you brought that up. So it was like my first full year of teaching. I started teaching in January, so I did a semester. But like my first full year, um, I had a group of young men, and they were very bright, highly intelligent, man, athletic, just you name it. They had the charisma, everything. And so what I noticed was that, in different spaces around the school building, their conduct would kind of change. The conduct would,
Yeah,
switch up a little bit. And I always saw the best in those guys. And I, thought of some things that I wish that I had, in place for when I was in school, for kids like me and, other people that I was around. And so it just kind of, the vision just kind of birthed like, all right, what are some things I can do that's productive for these guys outside of what we do normally in the classroom. And so that's when I began to do service projects. We would have like campus cleanup days. Man, they loved that. Like any chance they could
oh,
get
that's
to get, yeah, any chance they could get to get out of the classroom to go and do something they feel like it was meaningful, they was excited about it, and it was a great incentive. So I just kind of build off of that, and the campus cleanup days turned into events, and the events turned into programs, and ultimately, like before long, I was like, you know what, I need to make this a legit program, for these boys. And so that school year, man, I just, God gave me the vision. I wrote it down, and I
made
had the
it.
guys made it plain. Yeah, I had the guys. They were willing to do whatever, whatever it is that I wanted them. I asked of them. They were willing to do it, man. And so it just kind of started from there. And then from there, I was intentional on, just inputting things that they needed as young men. Like young men need to know how to do certain things.
That's
Um,
real.
they need to know how to take care of themselves and how to carry themselves in a certain way, especially in today's society. So that's the premise of how we got started.
Oh, that's Mike. That's awesome, man. Like that says a lot about your character. And as you know, as a male educator, there's not many, particularly black men educators, as there is, that you took out the time to say, hey, man, I'm going to do this to ensure that some young men get help even outside the classroom. I'm going to ask you one more question about that, and then we're going to kind of wrap it up. But so how are you looking at how to do that even this year? Because as you know, you're having to change how you even do that, and I know that's probably a large part of how you teach or how you mentor your students. How are you looking at how to do that in a safe way, in a productive way, but also keep them engaged in that process?
Man, I tell you, that's I'm not even gonna lie to you, man. That's been a challenge, because that with that mentoring, we rely so heavily on being in person and interacting together, just building that community, that sense of community togetherness. Um, but I have developed a couple of extra club activities,
Okay.
kind of outside of that, but still within the same umbrella, um, to kind of incorporate and bring in other people, from the community who are specialists or experts in certain areas. Like, for example, like with financial literacy, I know, several people who are, very fluent in that. And so just, making
Yeah,
plans around.
about that one too, my friend.
Okay. Yeah, just making plans around how I can get other people involved virtually. So, it might be a challenge for me if I know a brother or somebody who lives in Georgia or Texas, but they're very knowledgeable about a specific topic. I
Yeah,
might not be able to get them to come and talk to my boys on a Saturday.
right,
But
right.
now since we're virtual, I can just,
Yeah,
invite them virtually and we're all together,
yeah.
and still doing that. So, I've been, trying to finalize some plans and some ideas, but, this kind of an example how to get outsiders involved in what's going on in the world of education.
I mean, that's awesome, Mike, and I applaud you, man, for going out of your way to try to influence and encourage the next generation of young men and to step up to the plate and be productive and great citizens. So as we close, I want to first of all once again thank you, bro, for
Man,
coming up and having this conversation with me about education. I think that it's super important, and I think this is going to be an ongoing conversation. As you well know, there will be some parents and people that's trying to figure out what to do at the last moment. And so,
absolutely.
bro, thank you for coming on. Thank you for having this conversation with me about that. But I want people to connect with you. So, how can people connect with you, whether it's through social media, whether it's through the organizations that you're involved in? Like, how can they link arms with the great Mychal A. Winters, soon to be in the next 2 or 3 years, doctor?
Absolutely, yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Man, thank you again for having me on. But for those who are tuning in or listening, man, you can follow the Growth Educator page. That's where I post like my educational content. For my podcast page, Wins and Lessons, is on the screen there. You can follow that on IG as well. Um, so yeah, just stay tuned. It's a lot of things that I have upcoming, a lot of things that I'm working on. You can even tune into the things that have already taken place over the summer in the past couple of school years. So I look forward to continuing to work with our scholars to help build them up and prepare them for the real world. Is the real world is nasty, man. So we got to really get our hands dirty
Yeah.
to get these kids prepared, for reality. But yeah, check me out, the Growth Educator and Wins and Lessons podcast on IG, man. And thank you again, brother, for having me on tonight.
Oh, most deaf, most deaf. Like I said, it's gonna be a good time. But all right, Mike. Well, it's been an awesome night,
Yes,
awesome
sir.
conversation about life and leadership, and I hope everybody was motivated. If you have not seen or subscribed to either my podcast or even Michael's podcast, go subscribe today. My podcast, as many of you know, is called Leading the Lead. It's on YouTube and all podcast platforms. So check it out and get involved. All right, y'all. Much love, and
Yes,
let's
sir. Peace.
make a difference. All
Peace,
right, bro.
brother.